Seconded. Yeah.
Found it.
I
There
noticed
it
it,
is,
I
right
just
there.
didn't realize it was
Okay.
wrong.
That's wrong.
Okay,
Hold on, it just says.
Well. That's it.
And it's also incorrect up in the members present. I'll bet you it was
It
autocorrect.
must have been, yeah, because I know how to spell.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
That
stuff
you got
like that that you
the-
correct, you type it in correctly and you go back and then it's wrong because the computer's
Yeah.
changed it from what you've typed and recorrected it 2-3 times.
And just maybe tell everybody we're live streaming too.
yep, we're live, we're ready to go.
Good.
Thank you, everybody. It's January 29th, 2025, 6:32 PM, Midco Solid Waste Board of Directors meeting. We have a few members absent tonight, one from Lincolnville, one from Camden, and one from Hope. We do have votes tonight, so their votes will transfer to their alternate member. Just so that everybody knows. We have a short but lengthy agenda tonight, if that means anything, and the first item on the agenda, review and approval of the November 20th, 2024 meeting minutes. Can I have a motion?
I approve that we accept the minutes. And I'm finding more of those same typos throughout the minutes document, so I'll bet it was an autocorrect.
Yeah, it had to be. But I
So
will
if you'll go do
Yeah.
one of the
Will do.
command find. With
So I
that
have a
correction.
motion on the floor to
Second.
accept the meeting minutes as presented with changes to the spelling of one of our participants or one of our directors' name. It's been
Sure.
seconded. Do I have any discussion on that? Is there anything else?
Oh, yes, also in this is where I'd seen it in the committee.
Yeah, it's back there
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I
Awesome.
wasn't crazy.
Yeah, just doing global replace.
Okay, with all of that taken care of, it sounds like the meeting minutes from November 20th will be accepted.
Oh, are we gonna vote?
All those in favor? Seems like it has passed. Next item on the agenda, public and director comments. Please limit public comment to non-agenda items. Not seeing anybody from the public as they're rushing to the front of the room here. Is there anybody, any of the directors that need to say anything that might not be necessarily be on the agenda? Okay, we'll move that one along.
Current, I have.
Yes, sir.
So we have progressed a little bit with the well. We're not quite complete with the well installation. They were there yesterday, putting the pitless adapter in, and now we just have the pump left to put in the variable drive. So we're really close to
Perfect.
getting
We
that
go
all in.
close. That's good.
Kind of talking about it and he showed up. And then one of the other things is, nothing that needs immediate action, but I do want to talk about, it's gonna come up in this budget, but we have, the waste reduction reserve account, and initially, I think in Allison's finance report, she talks about why we had done that. So initially, we switched from going to EcoMaine to going to waste management. And it was just a matter of like logistics of like, we were closer to waste management than we were to EcoMaine, and we said it doesn't make much sense to displace a company that, or a municipality that's closer to Eco, just to say we're going there. But one of the agreements, or one of the concessions that we made was that we were going to put money aside in a reserve account for education or for waste diversion efforts. And I had talked about this during my facility tour a little while ago about, the resource of the landfill is finite. And we need to kind of shift how we look at the operation to be more of a revenue generating operation as well, not just based on fees. So if we solely rely on fees or taxation to kind of balance the budget at the facility, ultimately fees and assessments will go up. So we always have to be searching for a way to become more efficient and reduce costs. We also need to look at ways of diverting materials in the landfill that can lengthen the span of the landfill, but at the same time, potentially recovering materials that could generate revenue. So I talked about that, and one of the things that I want to do is I want to put together a proposal, kind of a small RFP requesting a certain statement of work for somebody to provide some kind of auditing of incoming materials and mechanisms on how to recover those materials and potential revenue that could be generated from that. Now, you don't go into this blindly. You know that there's probably an entity out there that could possibly do some of this, but in order to make it fair, we'll put it out there as an RFP. And, you know, there's some people out there that I believe that will fit this role really well. And ultimately, my goal is to kind of create a statement of work and then get the selected party doing a pilot project and an evaluation of what's coming in and what could be taken out to avoid disposal that could generate revenue. Excuse me, put it together in a report and then outline how it could be implemented in a pilot project. That would be year one, and that would be in this year's budget. Then year two, and that's using those funds for that we've already budgeted in this current budget year.
Oh,
And that money is already in there.
It's already in there,
Education and or something else.
or we could do it in
no,
the
we didn't,
next.
but we've been putting money in a reserve fund, but we didn't budget to spend it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's.
We
money's
could,
gonna-
we could appropriate that money to be used for that, right? That would
Right,
be-
like we
yeah.
haven't come up with I didn't see any, there's nothing in the budget that says we're spending it, but we are putting money
We're putting
away
money
to-
away,
to have it. to
so in
use.
another meeting or another
Yeah.
time, we,
So this is just an outline of what you'd like to do.
Just
It's
running-
something
just
we haven't
loosely
talked
running-
about.
right?
And, okay, all right.
And then hypothetically, in this next budget year, which we're budgeting, or we're putting away another $20,000 if it's approved. We would implement the recommendations if the board agreed with what came out of the evaluation and do a small pilot project. That would be year two, which would be next fiscal year. And then based on that pilot project, if it seemed like it was profitable and worth it, you know, and it achieved the goals of waste reduction and revenue generation, as well as probably some, you know, economic development for the area. We would implement probably a little bit more capital into implementing this process and maybe staffing to do it. So that's kind of my thought process. It's not completely ironed out 100%, but it's something that I think we need to kind of do a little bit of a stretch goal to get the ball rolling on something a little bit different than what we've continually been doing, because we haven't really initiated any kind of, you know, change in what we're doing or any other ways of generating revenue. We're talking about other ways of reducing costs, but the other side of it is we gotta kind of come up with some ways of making money too.
Do you have a,
No, go ahead.
do you have a general sense of the waste stream going into the landfill?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we do, but I mean, you need somebody that has experience with kind of the outlets of this and how it could be harvested, so to speak. You know, and ideally, the way I would envision all this working is, you know, if we find certain items that are identified as recoverable, you could somehow maybe reduce the cost of that disposal if those people are able to put that off. I mean, I'm just thinking it's.
We're not even
yeah.
really, we criminalize people trying to get things
Yeah.
out there at this.
So this is good
Point, so-
for,
Yeah.
I think, a line item for our next.
Yep, and I just wanted to kind of
Yeah, and this
wet
is
the
just,
palate on this a
a-
little
yeah, and
bit.
this is just a piece to talk to, but
Yep.
if you can make sure that we've got something for the next
We will.
agenda, something like
Yep.
this. And I understand why you're bringing that up, and
Yep.
I don't want to stop anybody from interacting here, but this is stuff that's not on the agenda that he wants to get in front of us.
Just want to wet
Yeah.
the palate on it a
Yeah,
little bit, see what the
absolutely.
appetite is.
And just one quick comment
Yeah.
on, we've got somebody working for us now out in Hope that does grant funding work. And basically her salary, she manages to recover what we pay her out of the grants that she finds for us. And there's a lot of stuff out there that strikes me, it's about waste, environmentally conscious stuff. And so I'm wondering if there are grants out there.
Well, there
that
is,
would
we already
help
have that
with-
earmarked, and we've talked with,
Oh, yeah, we've,
Mark
been in-
King, I think you talked with him.
Mark King, the DEP
Yeah.
has money also. They're
Okay.
not, right now, actually, it would be good maybe to let everybody know that might be listening. They do have grants available at this moment for food waste diversion. That's actually how we helped Scrap Dogs get one of those to begin with. But then later on in the year, they're gonna be releasing one that's not restricted to food waste, but you're right, there,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
we
you know,
have,
you can at least get money to get people to come in and to pay the person to come in and do the study for you.
That's kind of what we were thinking.
And that's,
We were
yeah.
tying that all into that. Yep.
Perfect. Is there anything else, Dave,
Um,
on
so
non-agenda?
does that mean that you would be? It would be nice if we had some, if we're gonna have it on our next agenda, does that mean that maybe like we might see an RFP or something out, or?
I'd like to put together a loose RFP and talk about it.
To see what it would look like.
Yep.
Yep, I get it.
That's awesome.
Sounds good.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I think the outcome of this was pretty good, to be honest with you. I've got pretty good, feeling about all this.
Has anybody else got anything else, a non-agenda item? All set? That's good, Dave. We want to make sure we get.
Yep.
Have a decent conversation about that the next meeting.
Yep. I do want to say, I mean, I want to thank everybody that was on the finance committee and not, I know you were sick. But, you know, the three people that helped me with that were extremely helpful in the budget this year. And I really think that this is one of the best budgets I've done since I've been here, or it's not just, it's a collaborative effort. But I think it came out really well. Yeah, so
That's an agenda item.
it is.
Perfect.
I
Okay,
want to thank everybody for helping me.
Oh, you're welcome.
our next item on the agenda, an action item, review of the Teamster Local 340 collective bargaining agreement. Review and vote, so we're gonna have a vote on this, and I'm gonna turn that right over to Dave. Dave, if you wanna hit on the high points, or however you wanna do that.
Okay, so just what?
I should have mentioned, sir, is there any portion, normally we do talk about this in executive session. I think if it gets to anything where we really wanna get into too much of a discussion, then
It's not a,
So what I intended to do, and I don't know if this is the way we're supposed to do it, because I haven't gone through, doing a budget negotiations at a board meeting. Or a budget review, union contract review during board meeting. What I planned on going over with you is the changes to the existing. Union contract. That. We've ironed out. But of course, we can't give the union a contract without the board's approval. So a lot of this is baked into the contract, into the budget already, but doesn't mean it's approved by the board. So I'd like to go through the details of the changes to the current
understood.
interlocal agreement, or the not interlocal agreement, the union contract. And is that something we can talk about?
I'm just saying that it is. If it's just gonna go as smoothly as I personally am anticipating, then that would be fine, but this is exactly the phase that you wouldn't talk about it in public if there were gonna be. Like, I think it's fine, but because I don't think it's gonna be a big, but normally when we're doing the contracts with somebody that we're truly gonna be negotiating with, you wouldn't have everybody hearing what every board member says, because then we can say.
Can we go into the executive session just for a short time?
We
I
have
think we're supposed to
to,
have noticed that.
we have to give notice of that.
I don't think it's
I don't have a
necessary.
problem with what we've done.
I don't.
I don't feel that any of this needs to be in executive session. It does not single anybody out.
No.
It is a contract that's viewable by anybody at any time.
Mhm.
And I feel we can do this right here and right now.
Okay,
As long as it's not gonna be a lengthy back and.
no,
It's just the changes is what the most important thing is.
it's like 4 changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
go through
And I
it.
had one small thing that I wanted to ask about. It's completely optional,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, and so we'll have a chance to, any and all questions, we will get a chance to answer those once Dave is done presenting what he's got going on.
So I met with the crew and I wanted to know what they really wanted in this next union contract, and they went over things, and they originally had some reservations about pay because in the last contract, which hasn't been quite, doesn't feel like 3 years, because I think what happened was we didn't really negotiate the completion of that last contract until later on beyond the 3-year mark.
Because of the change in.
It's a change of management, and when we negotiated that, we put something in there that said, you know, their COLA, it would be COLA or social security, whichever is greater, and that got struck from the original contract, and it only ended up being COLA. And in that year, people got an 8% increase, and they did not get.
Social Security was 8%.
Social Security got 8%, and the union, the people in Midcoast got 3%, and they felt like that put them way behind everybody else. And then they really were wanting like some kind of compensation. And just for the record, this union contract actually expired. So in theory, there is you know, they could ask for retroactive pay if they were really trying to do that. And I said, listen, I go, it's hard for me to ask for money for you guys after we've already done the budget. I can't go and add, you know, increase your pay in the middle of this budget, or just ruin the budget we're currently in. I go, look, I'll treat you right, and I'll do the best I can representing you if we can hold off on this till the next budget cycle. And that's what we did. And then I said, what do you guys want? And they said, these are the things we want. And I said, okay, I think that's reasonable. I go, let's work that in, and I'll come up with a proposal. I'll come up with some changes for you. You tell me if this is something you like. And that's what I did. They all agreed to it. They all seemed pretty happy with the changes I made. The changes, though, increase their pay. It's more representative of the function that they do at the facility. And it brings them in line with Camden's step and grade plan. Their big gripe was that they didn't feel like they were being treated like Rockport and Camden and the other municipalities, and that they were always like one tier down and just wanted to be treated equally. And I said, that's fair. So what I did was, currently the way that the facility employees were being paid, it was basically one job title besides the foreman. And it was basically transfer station operator. And they were all basically on a step and grade plan that didn't evolve and keep pace with their COLA. So when they would get a regular COLA or cost of living increase, by the time they got to their step increase, which was a set number based on the number of years they worked, they had already outpaced that number, so they didn't get anything. So it was riddled with flaws. So what I did was, I took Camden's step and grade plan and I laid it out, and then I created several positions. And I'm gonna go through the positions. So just remember, there was one position before, besides the facility foreman, and there was a mechanic, but that is kind of not.
We had only created that foreman position for fairly recently, right?
Right, that was an addendum to the last union contract. So the new positions are now transfer station operator is kind of the lowest tier. And then there's light equipment operator, heavy equipment operator, facility backup foreman, administrative assistant, which isn't in the union, but I put it in there so that Beth can be compensated the same way, and facility foreman. So each one of those job titles has a new job description associated with it. And it has a step and a grade associated with it. So if you look at the union contract, and I'm gonna go down to, it's gonna be almost at the bottom.
Which page?
I am getting there. So we can,
18 is where the job descriptions are.
18.
18, yes.
so this is the biggest change to the whole. The heck is going on here? On item. So do you have it? Yeah. So if you go to page 18, those are all the new job titles and the grade associated with it. Okay. And then if you go to the next page, which is page 19. That is basically the step in the grade. So each grade is on your left and each step has a year associated with it for years of service. So what I did was I took where they were at, currently at, and I put them as close as I could to it in the current step and grade plan that Camden had. And then basically the rest just kind of fell right into place. I didn't have to change anything. So it's really what Camden's using.
Yeah.
So this doesn't compensate them any more or any less than anybody else. It's on par with everybody else. And then,
Well, in Camden, what though? Like Public Works or,
well,
because it's different,
yeah,
it's a different job.
well, it's a lot of the public works functions. So they like, pretty much public works would be the best way to.
But you basically took their existing salary and baked them into this table.
I did. So
So their salary didn't change.
So I'll show you what it looks like here.
Oh, okay.
So when you, so this is where they were.
Is that on,
This is not, no.
You
No.
shouldn't, oh, yeah, right. No,
because
it's
I
not-
see
that's
names
not-
up there and the
You guys
names
can see
shouldn't
that,
be
but you guys can see that, but not any,
in
it's
the
not on-
public.
Yeah, we want to keep it off. the-
it's,
But
You
essentially,
would keep
this
that
table-
off of,
this table bakes in
broadcast.
an increase. Formula. Based on the increase formula that you have in Camden.
It's exactly that. And I didn't have to change any of it.
So you're not changing anybody's compensation, you're just taking this matrix and going, okay, Fred goes in here and Mary goes.
Yeah,
in
I
here.
found comparable positions and put them in as close to the number as they were at. And then,
okay, so we don't have to get into,
No.
to me saying, well, the scale of talking to the public about recycling is more advanced than
no,
Jimmy with the excavator over at Public Works.
No,
It's
we-
already was just matching up with,
Yeah,
right.
just
Okay.
mentioned-
And then the shop steward went through this with everybody. And they were all in agreement with it and they liked it and they seemed to be okay with it. So that was change number one. Change number two was
and that will change every year, the,
not every year. So like some people after their 3 year, so the grade, the step in the grades, if you look at them.
no, but we'll adjust after each year with the COLA.
So the way
we'll
it-
adjust all the,
So the whole
whole
like
chart.
step and grade plan changes based on the COLA.
right,
Yeah,
okay,
the step and grade remain the same, but the numbers inside the chart go up
They go up
With
each year.
each year with the COLA
Right,
increase,
with the
right?
COLA
Okay.
increase, yep.
Yeah, it's like the
Okay.
feds.
And then, you know, they get a COLA, a normal cost of living increase, and then if they get into year 5, they move up into the next step, which has been adjusted annually.
And then, of course, if they get promoted to a different job, they just jump up to wherever it is.
Exactly.
And is there something in there like we used to have in the foreign service where if you get a promotion and you go from, let's say you are at a grade 7 and you've been there for a long time and you get, let's say it's a 7-step G. Any promotion, you would have to go up the equivalent of 2 steps. So that if somebody was at a 7-step G, that's $26.09.
Yeah,
If they got bumped up to a newer position, they would need to earn at least $27 and either 68 or 88 cents. So you find where that number is, and so that would be a
they would have to
grade
change
8
positions.
step H.
They would-
Right, if they were changing positions and getting a promotion,
Yep.
it's the equivalent of a 2-step increase monetarily.
Yeah, if they're there a little bit longer and they go up a grade, they're gonna go back.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's
as opposed to
It's
that.
pretty fair. I mean, this is about as fair as you can make it.
Yeah. Good.
the only general question I have about it is you break down the job descriptions for each person.
Mhm.
Then you're the one that can turn the water on, you're the one that can drain the sink, and you're the one that can, wash the dishes. But if you, God help you, if you ask the dishwasher to turn the water on. So that's my only question. I know it's a silly example, but my question is whether that will, how the culture at the facility allows you to mix and match people based on a need.
That's always the,
That's how-
that's always the drawback to like creating this tiered structure within an organization. You know, if you keep everybody one title, you can say, you go here, you go there.
Right.
But it creates animosity amongst the people that have different skill levels for doing certain functions. So, you know, I mean, I think all the functions are equal importance, but to, you know, like, let's say a bulldozer operator has a unique skill set that, you know, someone who's working the line does not have. So someone working the line has to have people skills and has to, you know, be able to handle working out in the elements and these kinds of things. The bulldozer operator has to have a certain set of skills to run that machine safely and efficiently.
I think he's asking about cross training and moving, like your ability to,
So I know what he's
I
asking.
just don't want you to get hamstrung. That's
No,
all.
no.
because that has happened and that's. a
No,
really good
and,
question.
I mean, the reality is, that's where we're at right now. I mean, we have the ability to cross-train people or cross-allocate where they're gonna work. And the way generally it works as a rule of thumb is if you work that position up one step from where you're at, you get paid that higher rate of pay for that day. If you work more than half a day, that's generally how I see that working.
Okay.
You know, that's, so, yeah, but we're not gonna have a lot of that going on, but let's say hypothetically, someone works in the gatehouse and they're getting paid, you know, attendant pay, and the gatehouse pays a little bit more, and he works in the gatehouse for a full day, we would just pay him for being in the gatehouse for a full day.
So as long as you've got that level of organization and you don't get reluctant, because one of the things we also cut out of the budget, which we'll talk about later, is part-time labor is, you know, we kind of flushed it down, so we're not gonna do as much. But if you get hamstrung in your inability to get someone that's maybe the heavy equipment operator, but you need them over there for a day just because of whatever.
If you're a heavy equipment operator and I ask you to work the line, you're gonna get paid as a heavy equipment
You
operator.
always get paid the higher wage.
Yeah,
And as long as you don't have a cultural issue that says that that's below my pay grade.
Right, we
I'm
do,
totally
we've had that
cool with it.
issue before where people are like, I'm not, you, and they say you shouldn't let this person work over here. It's been a while, but
I'm in agreement with what you're doing.
There's a little bit of that that's
Pointing
gonna
out
happen,
the
but-
Potential conflicts with how this is getting defined, and the flip side is just as bad, so it's a
I
management.
was gonna say, I had the same exact issue in the other place I was at, and it was a union contract, and then this is exactly how we handled it.
Okay,
So it's not any different than the way I did it before.
all
I
right,
think there's some manager discretion baked into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For sure, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yep. So that's change number one. Change number two, I added a holiday, which was Juneteenth, which is what everybody else has. There was one they didn't have. The next one was, the next change was their retirement contribution. The employee was able to put in 5% of their pay into a 401k or retirement plan. And the employer only matched 4.5%, which was kind of not a real, I mean, it's kind of petty. It's
Yeah.
0.5% of, you know, they wanted 6% and they wanted to match the 6%. I felt that was fair, pretty fair. When you ran the numbers and we talked about it at the finance committee, it wasn't a giant number. But it gives them a feeling of, you know, having a little bit
Yeah,
more.
that's really good, because a lot of these places nowadays are matching up to 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll match 100% up to 4%, and then you're on your own after that.
Mhm.
That's pretty good.
It is, but-
6% is pretty good.
We have good people and we want to retain them,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
gotta, I mean, the other, you know, I think that the thing that they're giving in on is the request for, retro pay.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
this goes,
One, like
Yeah.
one in-laws. Yeah.
Encouraging them to contribute to that is a good thing to begin with.
yeah,
And
probably not all of them.
with a lot of municipal work, it's always been that when you work for government, you don't work for the salary, you work for the long-term benefits, and that's
Right.
one of them, so.
That's good.
so then the other thing, so we talked about Juneteenth, we talked about the retirement. They wanted 2 pairs of boots, not just one.
Okay, so I had a question on that.
Yep.
On the. That's on page 16,
16 of the union contract.
I think so. So it looks like it's struck out, but it says will reimburse an employee
I changed it.
for up to $2,400.
No, there's a line through.
There's
The line through
There's
two,
a-
it's up to $400.
Yeah, they wanted two pairs. It
Oh,
was-
because see, my line, the line is drawn through the two and the four, so.
I think it's just that the line looks like it's
Okay.
drawn across
The
because
base
it
of the
continues
floor.
on to the floor.
Those are
the
some awesome
typographic
Is-
floor.
Well, but,
No, they're-
but is that an is that an adjustment? Is that up or down or?
Yeah,
So
that
they got $200 a year.
200
They're asking
there
for
is-
two pairs of boots, which is $400 a year.
Yeah,
Every
okay.
shop for Red Wings.
Okay.
My
And you must have somebody come in,
feet sneakers.
specific type of-
They go get the boots they want as long as they're safety toed boots. They give the receipts to Beth and she
Right, we reimbursed them.
reimbursed them. Yeah.
okay,
So it's up to,
you're right, that's good money.
So, and, that pretty much is it. So those are the things.
That's good.
I had one little thing that occurred to me largely because a lot of what's going on in the larger world today. Not to mention, I had E.B. White's, Strength White's Elements of Style hammered into my brain. And one entire paragraph is eliminate unnecessary words. That's the entire chapter.
On this contract,
So on page 4, and I hope this is easy. On section 2, gender neutral terms, can we have it say intended to be gender neutral and equally applicable to all persons, period.
so we're on section 2.
Section 2 on page 4,
Yep.
and just eliminate of the female and male gender. That's unnecessary. It's just equally applied to all persons,
Applicable to all
all persons, period.
Yeah, oh, I see what you're saying at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's
unnecessary to
applicable
get
to
into
all
slicing
persons
and dicing.
And get rid
all
of
that.
the female and male gender.
Yeah.
Yes,
I get
potentially
it.
Yeah, let's just, that could,
seriously counter.
I don't think anybody's gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. And as long as this has not been signed yet and there's a chance to get it in there
So-
now,
We can't sign this. We can't propose it to them until you guys say it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it's-
Yeah.
all right, but that will be,
any other?
Thank you. I'm
That's good.
embarrassed.
that's the
I-
only one that I could find, but
Is there anything else? So those are the changes have been presented to us. And I feel that we've all read this probably too many times. Is there any more discussion on this?
would you like a motion to?
I was just gonna say, I was waiting for Allison, because,
I moved that we,
no, I was just waiting, because I.
oh, because
if
you
had-
wondered if I had more comments.
Yes, I did. Okay,
No, I
Okay.
would love to make them. I'm just waiting for everybody to stop talking so I can make a motion.
okay, I will, my mouth then, but I'd entertain a motion on
I
this.
do really enjoy this type of dialogue, but I'm gonna abstain from more
Okay.
grammar commentary. I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement between Midco Solid Waste Corporation and Teamsters Local 3. Is it chapter 340 or Teamsters Local 340 as presented, as amended?
We have a
I'll second.
motion on the floor and
I'll
it's been
second it.
seconded. Is there any more discussion? We'll take it to vote. All those in favor?
And I wanna thank the crew for
Thank you.
working with me on all this. 'Cause
Yeah,
Couldn't have
absolutely.
done it collaboratively. I mean, and this has been as easy as you could ever imagine. It hasn't really been difficult at all.
Great
Good.
job. I
Yeah,
have
it's
seen
awesome.
this take multiple board meetings,
Many
executive
renditions.
sessions, and
Yeah.
just over really kind of ridiculous things. So this is really great.
So next item on the agenda, Finance Committee report. Allison, thank you for getting that to us. You wanna touch on?
Sure,
that
yeah, just real
highlight?
quick. And we can go into a little bit more depth on any of it as we go over the budget, but basically, we're in really good shape. It's a really good thing that we changed the fees when we did. That was in effect for all of the previous fiscal year. If we hadn't done that, we would be not in such great shape. So that fee increase kicking in combined with the other places where Dave and others, mostly Dave, have been able to figure out how to save money. We're in quite good shape. So we added, another $140,000 to the unassigned fund balance. So that's about the, amount we were in the black last year. We're trending just fine for this year. Last year, the big problem was the leachate was just like $100,000 or something more than we thought it would be. So now this budget, Dave almost over, I don't want to say over corrected, but he was really conservative in the revenue projections, wanting to make sure that we didn't fall into that trap from before, where we have revenue projections just way optimistic. Because what happens when we do that is you end up saying, oh, we had a big loss in the landfill, and now we're going to make it up by, not spending any of our swap shop money, or it's a different amount of money. But I think this time we're really a lot closer to accurate projections. In the past, sometimes it's been like, well, as long as you end up at the end of the year kind of close revenues and expenses wise, it doesn't really matter how it's all divvied up. But we spent a lot of time going over all of that.
A lot of time.
A lot of time. We have an Excel accounting guru on our committee now, and a very astute geologist also. So between the two of them, no cell or rock or potential hole was left unturned, which is really great. It's Dave was really patient with everybody. I'm normally the most meddling in the budget, and so he's put up with me over the years, and I was able to take a little bit more of a backseat this year, which is great. So we had a lot of really good discussions. The main things are that we want to take that, we took some of that unassigned fund balance. Overall, leaving the philosophy has been to leave the assessments as much the same as possible to the towns. I personally would like to see those continue to decline. But knowing that we have some big potential infrastructure things coming up, especially with the hauling contract is going to be expiring. And Dave, that's one of the things he's been talking to us about, that the efficiency of that is really hampered, and our options for who's going to bid on those contracts is really hampered by the fact that we're tied to this one system with the containers now. And so when we got to the end of looking at the first round of the budget revisions, Robin was quick to say, whoa, hold on, it actually looks like we have enough money, we really setting aside some right now, so that we're in a position, if Dave can implement some of that with the open trailers and some of the different stuff that is not my area of expertise, but we've talked about, we want him to be ready to do that. So that's taking some more money, putting that in the facility improvement reserve, and then also funding the equipment replacement reserve, because the unassigned fund balance is going to be well above right now is well above what our minimum policy is. So that was the kind of the big thing. Also making sure that we have, we're in a position with the leachate management. We had a meeting the other day with a check-in meeting with leachate management. The company. Bill joined us for that too. We had already set aside a little bit of money to do the evaluation of whether we can do on-site treatment. But we added a little bit more to that leachate stormwater reserve, just to make sure that if we are in a position to move forward with any permitting. And that's, we're still waiting on the full audit, which is interesting.
Not for lack of trying.
No, I mean, and February has been really, you can read it, right, you can read about it in the papers, and
We need to put our best numbers in as a placeholder, and then once we get it, and the towns are all doing it.
yeah, and he did, so we don't have the whole, report with the fancy explanations, but he did give us these, you can see it I updated the big numbers that we really need to know, we're pretty certain of that. And then the other one that we always want to keep an eye on, and it might be worth, revisiting sort of our investment policy for that and how we go about it, but it's that closure reserve. Again, given the fact that we think the landfill closure time period is not 5 to 7 years, like we said, for 30 previous years. Now they're saying 7 to 15 years we're away from closure. We're in very good shape, arguably, for that. So the total funds that between the towns and the corporation collectively, we have about $3.5 million in reserves there. And the current closure estimate, the cost that would be expected, and I know we could argue about whether this is right or not, but what CB and Mahar says is that we're looking at immediate closure costs when that finally happens of about 2.5 million. So then what you have is that post closure, which is the real concern because that continues forever. And with a normal landfill, they estimate 30 years of post-closure care is sort of the regulatory requirement. We're going to be in a different situation because we'll have to do it forever. It depends. So getting to the point where we're pumping, figuring out how we're going to be pumping less is, just the most important long-term thing. So that's why we're funding some of the activities for the North Quarry culvert stuff and the work we're doing with leachate management systems. We're funding that out of the closure reserve. So overall, we're in really good shape.
One quick question about the town held funds. Do they have an aiming point that they've been given? In other words, what causes these numbers to go up?
So that's interesting. This happened, those funds came from when we left the MRC at the end of our past, or one of our past contracts, we were equity owners of the PERC incinerator. And so when we withdrew from that collective, we got money, something like 1.1 million at the time back. And then we all argued as a group about whether there was some disagreement among the towns at the time as to how those funds were going to be used. It was all going to come back to Midcoast Solid Waste. And at the time, the board was talking about investing those funds in redesigning the facility, and it was a time of high conflict and a little bit of not everybody was on the same page with what to do with those funds. And there was some mistrust about them getting reserved for closure, so that we just decided each of the towns got to take their portion back, and then they made votes that said they're going to reserve that for their portion of closure. Each town has decided to invest that in a different way. And so the way that the responsibility, it's laid out in the audit what the responsibility for each town is going to be. We all have a closure liability, which is based on the percentage of the assessments and all of that. The way those numbers are going up and down is based on, I guess you could say, the investment strategy of the different.
So the seed money came from that equity stake.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
when we bailed out, and so the towns aren't adding to it out of the.
Right, nobody's adding to it, it's just collecting interest.
So this stuff is all earmarked to come back
Mhm.
when. it's-
Yeah, it's basically
That's fine, that makes sense.
an account that you can't touch.
Yeah.
other
Right,
than
each town went through their own
invest it one way or
process
the
of
other.
restricting that, and
That's
then we've had to try to prove in this long thing of demonstrating how much money we have for this purpose. But then there are actually a couple other little funds that are they in here? Yeah, the MRC Reserve Fund was money that came back from PERC also in a different installment. And that the towns voted to give it to Midcoast Solid Waste, all but one, which was Hope. So that's a little bit of a it's a difficult fund because it's only $66,000, but we can't do it belongs to only the three of us. So it's like, should only benefit the three towns that contributed. So that's just a little bit of a leftover housekeeping item.
That money is in a reserved account and not touched in Hope, to the best of my knowledge. It's just
So
earmarked.
wanted their chunk of it as opposed to the other three towns that said leave it at Midco.
And then basically, my understanding is that there was some doubt by the then members from Hope that they would ever see any of that money to go back into what it was supposed to go into. They were
It
distrustful
was
of the
reasonable at the
process.
time a little bit, because there was all this, there'd been all this talk about a multi-million-dollar.
Yeah,
redesign
and
of
they
the
were like, we're not
transportation.
paying for, a fancy
Single stream
schmancy station
recycling
when
and-
we're also gonna have a bill in the future, so we're putting the money
Yeah.
where we control it so that we know it's going to be there when we need to cough it back up.
Fair enough. Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
But then does everybody have a printed copy of the budget? There's a little bit of, a few discrepancies in between what was sent out initially in the packet, and then we noticed a couple more things, and I think most of those have been corrected in this printed form. I know for the one major one, Bill had noticed a discrepancy in the way the assessments were done in the one we sent out, and then there's also a difference between we accidentally on the finance committee didn't copy Dave's recommendation for the waste reduction reserve for some reason, and we added an extra $20,000 to the closure reserve, so that needs to be corrected. And then the other sort of thing that Robin and I guess all of us want to highlight is that, the manager salary, the way that I wrote it up in the finance committee report, but we, unlike some of the previous years where we budgeted a full-time manager, and then we have this other arrangement with Dave. For the past couple of years, we're been reasonably sure that Dave will continue through the fiscal year, and so we're budgeting for what Dave is going to be paid. But if that arrangement were to change, we have not budgeted anywhere close to enough for like a full-time manager. So when we do the budget like this, it's kind of a commitment from Dave, like if this is what he recommends in the budget, he's also saying that he plans to stay. That initial contract, so to speak, was, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, you were more involved in that. I was actually against it at the time, because I thought we always needed a full-time manager, but we've seen it's been working out pretty well.
Seen that it worked pretty good.
Um,
I wasn't too involved, but I know.
You and Bob, it was you and
Oh,
Bob.
you were involved, come on.
It was, yeah, this was like Bob and Karen's idea, and I was like,
Well,
no.
We had to do something
Sure.
quick and something that was gonna work, and we had an initial conversation with Dave, and then it went from there.
So that's been very wise, and I was wrong about the efficiencies of that. We definitely are saving quite a lot of money from it. So, but that was a $5,000 a month was the way that was done. And then 1 year it got changed. You'll see it flips in the history of that. It got reduced because we wanted to be able to give more money to another employee that wasn't budgeted. Anyway, long story short, it's a little, what I noticed not until I wrote the report is that the number that was in our packet didn't add up to $5,000 a month, basically. There's a little.
So if you look at the screen here, it was at 58,710.
And I don't know why we didn't talk about, oh, you changed it. Yeah,
So now I changed it, it's here, I talked with Jody about it, and we just changed it to the number it should be. And in order to balance the account, without making too many like drastic changes of what the finance committee had decided to do, and this is, you didn't see this was,
Listen,
so what Jody recommended to do here was to go to, so
It's kind of, and that doesn't really matter, that's getting into the weeds.
That's the weird number that showed up there.
right, so she was saying, let's just, look, the interest income could be adjusted slightly. Because she felt that, you know, we were doing pretty good with it, and
Yeah.
she just plugged that number in right there.
Yeah.
And then that made everything balance. So that was the only other change, and then I don't wanna distract you, but did you have something else?
No, I think, and these are the highlights, we can go on and on about any of it, but
So, I mean, if we look at the summary. So here's the budget summary. We can go over any of the expenditures and revenues. I will say that,
oh, the household hazard, we added another household
Yes.
hazardous waste day.
Yep.
To be in a position to do that.
Yep.
We've talked about it in previous years and just didn't feel like we had the money or political will for it, but it's really overwhelming.
It's really- Yeah, it has for everybody.
Yeah.
and just to talk about that a little bit, we plan on trying to do that a little differently next year. Or this year, next year?
This year now.
Well, it's in this
It's
year.
this year and
Yeah.
next year.
Oh,
yeah.
next, oh,
If
right.
we do two, right? And then there'll be another one.
So we won't, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll have two, and theoretically. But the thing
We're
is,
budgeting this for the next fiscal year.
yeah, but next fiscal year is in July, so. So we can do the one that we budgeted this year, and then we can do another one later
Yeah.
on. But we've been trying to do this during full operation when we're running. And it's a madhouse. It really is. I don't know if anybody's been there,
The cars line up.
all the way to
It
Graffos.
floods the place up.
And,
It
and we're
really
just
does.
gonna do it on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And do it alone and then just staff it, and then we don't disrupt everybody on a Saturday. We've tried to make it work. We can make it work, but it's crazy for everybody. And then the people who aren't participating in it are kind of a little bit upset because they get kind of,
They just want to drop off one yellow bag and they.
So with doing that, and I completely understand
Yeah.
why. But what does that do to, obviously you gotta pay somebody and that's overtime.
Yeah,
And
we-
is there, do we make anything on that?
we don't, we only
Well,
get compensated for half of the cost of a unit. And then we have to pay the setup
Then
fee.
you had to pay the setup fee, yeah.
So, I
Okay.
mean, I think we can absorb the overtime and what we have now for
Okay.
this.
How many hours?
That's
do you-
not the biggest part of it.
It's usually
the
4
overtime.
or 5 hours.
4 or 5 hours, okay, all right.
Yeah,
The biggest cost is the actual
Yeah.
stuff that,
yeah.
Okay,
it's a fun and volunteer opportunity for.
And
board
yeah, and
members
if
too,
we can get any volunteers, that'll always helpful. So,
directing traffic and.
you know, we could have less employees, staff on board to use the equipment, move things around and help the company, you know, shuffle things around, and then volunteers can help direct traffic and ask for how many units they have, and Bill's already signed up for both.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm all into it.
So I know there's a lot here and we've all looked at it and some of us have no questions because we've been involved in the budget process. But do we just wanna go through where the changes are, or do we wanna go line item by line item? What do you, because that would take a while, I know,
I'm,
we wanna make
I'm good
sure
with the highlights reel.
just the highlights, okay,
We've already been through it, so I'm ready to. read it
numerous
again,
times,
to be honest.
yeah,
I mean, the
think
report also tried to highlight the
Yeah.
changes
Okay,
that,
I will say that this
there aren't really changes.
this one's been vetted pretty hard.
yep,
Yeah,
I just want you
And
understand.
I'm not
just
saying
want
that in a bad way.
everybody-
I really appreciate
It's
it.
what I put in the
Yeah,
report.
I
most
mean,
of the
if
things.
there are any highlights beyond, let's put it this way, rather than the highlights reel, if there's anything that we have not already discussed that we need to
Good,
look
good
at,
point.
let's do it. That, I'm good with that.
Dave?
I think that
We're covered?
I think that this budget represents a very accurate estimate of what we plan to make and spend next year. And it puts away a reasonable amount of money for future improvements to the facility and for closure. And one last thing, we did budget for a loader in this. And the way that works is they borrow the money and we don't pay for it until the next fiscal year. So I've gotten quotes, I've gotten estimates on a trade-in. there's two types of, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but, that machine is undersized and they're beating the hell out of it. It's probably not gonna be worth anything if we don't trade it in now. And, in order to get into the next size machine, it's 2 steps up from the one we have. So I budgeted for that one, but the reality is they're coming out with a model that's in between those two, and we might be able to go with that, which would be a little less than I actually budgeted. So I'm hopeful that ends up happening, but I've already got the machine kind of sized up and budgeted for it. It's in this budget. We put money aside in the equipment reserve, and I think we're good. I really think that if we keep the one we have, we're gonna be owning something that's gonna cost a lot of money, and then we'll be able to do what we need to. That's really my one area that I think we need to move on. And other than that, like I said, I think this is a really good budget, and,
And it keeps the towns flat.
there's no increase to the towns. There's-
The only thing that I want to mention, and this is probably a good time to mention that, is some people get concerned over time when a budget is consistently flat to towns. Seriously, they do.
Some people who can't find other normal problems come up.
I wasn't gonna say that, but I cannot disagree on that. So I just want to make mention of that. And if anybody would like to speak to that, I certainly have no problem. I can straight face this to anybody. This is a really good representation of damn good management.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. I
And
agree.
This is an example of a good team effort.
It is.
And it's all the way across the board. It's
It is.
Vinny, it's Beth, it's all the crew. We couldn't have got through this union contract as easily if we didn't have good people who are willing to work with us. We got good people on board, we wanna keep them, everything's running smooth,
It's exactly what you want.
yeah.
We don't even have, normally we have to say, oh, well, next year's gonna be a union contract negotiation year, so we better budget more money in legal for that.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to do that.
I'm glad you said that, so,
Yeah.
so. Now that you've said okay to the union contract, I am gonna give this to Sarah Newell. Who's the person, our attorney, that's gonna kind of maybe make the corrections and go over it, just to make sure there's no mistakes in here. We're not doing anything that could be problematic, and then once that's done, we'll give the draft to the union to look over and agree to, hopefully, and then that'll be the end of it.
Perfect.
It seems to me the goal in municipal budgets is keep it flat or keep it steady. But, avoid the roller coaster ride. So this is good.
Well, some of the things we did, for instance, the facility improvement reserve, we put 100,000 in there to fund that in order to rejigger how the waste is handled and transported, with the idea that we're gonna have reduced trucking costs in the future. You could theoretically not have funded that reserve, drop everything, drop it to town's assessment, but then you wouldn't have the opportunity to make
Fix
that
it
investment.
And make it.
We've
better
been
for
talking
the
about that for a while. We've identified, I'm gonna say years ago, that the way we're doing it is holding us to just minimal vendors, and we're paying the big dollar. We're strapped there. We need to move on that to do other things.
But that's
You
the
know what I
point.
mean?
In other words,
Yeah.
We're keeping it flat. We can take it down, but it'd be the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I certainly agree about
I
that,
think
but
current things
but I
maybe needs
wouldn't-
to go up, but
no, but I would not be a good chair if I didn't mention that, because people do talk about that.
Sure, well, fair enough.
So I worked with the current hauler. And this was about 6, 8 months ago, but we had estimated that the savings if we use trailers is about $60,000 just to truck it. That's not the investment now, that's just the trucking. But, that's all.
yeah, I mean, this facility used to cost the taxpayers a whole lot, and that's what ultimately got us to go to and this wasn't me, I can't claim any credit, but they went to this pay per bag system a lot sooner than many of the other communities did, and so been on this downward assessment trajectory, which, the idea of not paying for your neighbor's trash, only paying for your trash. And then we do subsidize there are certain things that we subsidize, the recycling. We could, and we're doing that for free. There are times when I think we should sell a, $5 recycling sticker, so that in order to be able to recycle at the facility, you at least have, you've bought this little sticker and you've signed something saying you know how the system works, because our recycling opportunities are so much better than many of the other communities. People do come here just to be able to recycle things that they can't in other places. So, but that's probably a topic for another.
It probably is.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, and Dave, you've got nothing else to present, I would entertain a motion on this budget presentation.
So, just to help Beth out, can we call out the numbers that are on, I'm putting them on the screen for you, and they're here, and. So, and then what we can do, if you wanna give me a minute, or I can do this after, is I can transfer all of these numbers into the board of directors column, but I can do that at a later date if you want.
Right, and we're gonna be voting on the
Talk about
current
it.
finance committee.
Yeah.
Where I move to approve the budget for FY 26 as presented in the finance committee column, with expenses and revenues each totaling $2,990,995.
Let's have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Well seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Who seconded? I was writing. Bill? Thank you.
Bill,
Thank you.
any other discussion? We're all set.
Well done.
I'll put it to vote. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Good job, Dave.
Well,
And
no,
everybody.
Good
Thank
job,
you very much.
everybody.
It was a
Everybody
team
has
effort.
done a
I'm
great
not
job
gonna
on
take
this.
any credit for it.
No, you deserve a lot of credit. That was-
Yes, you do.
One
And
of the
Jody-
biggest things with this budget now compared to when we started is it was all over the place and it was hard to understand. and You had to go to page 10 to understand what was on page 1. Yeah, it was,
Still a little of that, but
yeah,
So,
yeah,
It's a budget.
but it's a budget, but it is so much easier to understand.
do you want me to save you a second
Well,
to figure out loud?
I think we should also do the assessment to maybe.
Is
It is
there,
not- It's, what do you mean it's different?
Well,
The total's the same, but the individual towns, wow, it's a little
different
bit.
year to year.
so here it is right here on the screen, if you look at. You wanna-
Like last year, Rockport was 163.
Oh, for each town.
Yeah, 163, 300,
Part of the percentage issue.
so it's, $79 difference.
As long as we're sure those are right. I mean, really,
You wanna compare them against that?
I mean.
These were given to me by Dave Kenny. So,
Did everybody get that? That's
so he was involved.
through the, yeah. That's funny that,
Technically, they're in the on page 21.
well, the magic number, we might as well just say it, Camden. $238,230, Hope, 57,517, Lincolnville, 95,197. Rockport, 163,221, for a grand total of our magic number of $554,164.
Is there anything else anybody else has to discuss before we look for a final motion?
Wow,
An early night one.
I mean, you know me, I can,
You got a lot to say?
let's go back to the whole gender neutral language and the,
Uh,
I move to adjourn.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Wow,
A new era.
if Bob could